Hello, and thank you for joining me again today on the Finding Hope After Loss podcast. Today's episode is going to be a little different because it's just me talking with you honestly about something that's been on my mind a lot lately. So, I wanted to talk about some of the things that I didn't really understand until I actually went through pregnancy loss myself. And for those who are not familiar with my story, I went through infertility due to PCOS, and I've also had 3 pregnancy losses, including 2 early miscarriages, and then the 32-week stillbirth of my daughter, Jasmine. And I think these things that we don't understand is something that so many of us who have gone through loss experience. We suddenly realize there's this whole emotional world we didn't even know existed before we actually became part of it. And there are things that maybe used to confuse us, or maybe things we never thought twice about. And now they're things that we understand deeply in a way that I know we all wish we never had to. If you've ever thought, why am I feeling this way? Or why does nobody else seem to understand this? I promise you're not crazy. You're grieving and you're heartbroken and you've been through a lot. You've been through a life-changing event. And grief just changes the way that we all view and experience the world. So first, I just want to talk about why pregnancy announcements can hurt. This is something I definitely never understood before going through loss, was why pregnancy announcements could be painful. Before going through this myself, they just felt happy. They're exciting, joyful. You're happy for your friends and family, and you don't really think anything of it. But after loss, it all became really complicated because then there's conflicting feelings happening. So you can be happy for somebody, but you can still feel really sad for yourself at the same time. And one doesn't necessarily negate the other. You can absolutely feel both at the same time. And I think that people who are outside the loss and infertility community often assume that if pregnancy announcements hurt us or bother us, that it means it's because we're bitter or jealous towards those people. And then, in turn, that makes us feel really guilty about it, like we're feeling something wrong, or, we shouldn't be feeling this way, we should just be happy, maybe there's something wrong with us. But there's nothing wrong with you. It's just grief. Seeing that pregnancy announcement is a reminder of what we lost and what we were expecting our life to look like. It's what we're longing for, what was supposed to happen for us too. And sometimes it's not even about the announcement itself, but about seeing someone reach a milestone that we never got to reach. Seeing all the gender reveals, the due date announcements, the baby showers, the newborn pictures, the birth announcement. Loss changes how all of these things feel. Another thing that I never truly understood before loss was how significant that due dates and birth dates become. Even years later, I'm 8 years post-loss, and that day still hits me really hard every year. And people can often think, well, that pregnancy ended early, so why are you still thinking about the due date? You didn't connect with the baby anyways. But we know that that's far from the truth. Whether you're early or not, we love that baby and we still connected with that baby. They don't understand is that once you know your baby exists, once you see that positive test, then we start imagining a future with them and a life with them. We think about holidays, birthdays, what they might look like, who they might become, what their favorite color would be, hearing what their voice sounds like. And a due date or a birth date becomes attached to all of these dreams and hopes that we had. So when that date comes around, it isn't just another date on the calendar. It's the day your life was supposed to look different. And nobody else ever remembers these dates, but we remember. And I think so many grieving parents silently carry these dates every single year. And sometimes the hardest part is feeling like the world moved on while we are still carrying that loss and that grief with us. And it can be painful when others don't acknowledge that on these important dates. Another thing that I never really understood was why some people disappeared after going through grief, or why people in my life disappeared when I was the one going through grief. But now I do understand it, because grief is honestly exhausting, not just emotionally, but it can take such a physical toll on your body as well. And you're carrying around all this anxiety, sadness, things that trigger you, fear. And you're coming down from all of the pregnancy hormones, because even if you were early, you still had those hormones in your body. And, the memories that you had. And sometimes it all becomes too much to explain your pain to people who don't understand it. So, maybe you start by not going to that baby shower. Maybe you start avoiding people on social media. You say no to going out with friends. Sometimes you don't answer their text messages or phone calls. And it's not because you don't care or that you don't want to have a relationship with them. It's because you're just trying to survive and get through it day by day. Sometimes, honestly, hour by hour, minute by minute. Honestly, one of the loneliest parts of grief is realizing how uncomfortable losing a baby makes other people. So many people just don't know what to say, so they say nothing, and they may disappear from your life. Or they make insensitive comments like, "At least you know you can get pregnant. At least it happened early." Or my favorite, "Everything happens for a reason." And even when they mean well, which I truly believe most people do, I don't think people are trying to intentionally be hurtful, but they don't understand that these things that they think are comforting are actually not comforting at all. So even if they do mean well, the comments can hurt us. So sometimes it's hard to decide, honestly, if people making insensitive comments is worse, or if people just being silent and disappearing is worse. I feel like for me, it's the silence that's worse, because at least the people that are making those comments are trying. They're trying to say something that's helpful, even if it doesn't come across that way, versus people who just disappear from your life. Another thing that I never fully understood before loss is how terrifying pregnancy after loss can feel. I think people assume that once somebody gets pregnant again, everything's okay. You're going to have your rainbow baby. Also, people often don't talk about the fact that you can still lose your rainbow baby, which is a whole other fear in and of itself. But for all of us who go through it, well, I won't say all, I guess for many of us that go through pregnancy after loss, it's filled with so much fear and anxiety. The innocence is gone, and we no longer get to fully enjoy our pregnancy. And before loss, many of us assumed, the narrative that we all hear, that getting pregnant automatically leads to bringing home a baby. And after loss, you realize there are no guarantees. You're not magically safe after you make it past the first trimester like we're told. Really, there is no safe point in pregnancy. And that's the scary truth that we all had to learn by going through it ourselves. So that changes things for us. We're now overanalyzing every single symptom. Appointments aren't met with hope, but they're met with fear. We're always bracing ourselves for the bad news that we're going to hear, or that we expect that we're going to hear. And sometimes we even struggle to bond with the baby because we're so scared to get attached. And all of these things are normal. It doesn't mean like there's anything wrong with you again. It just means that we're trying to protect our heart. And with this, especially when it comes to struggling to bond, then we start to feel guilty again. We feel the guilt for feeling anxious, for not feeling excited enough, for letting the fear take over, and sometimes even feel guilty for experiencing joy for the pregnancy after loss. We feel guilty like we're trying to replace the baby that we lost, when in reality, nothing can ever replace our baby, because babies never replace babies. It's all just incredibly complicated, and I really think that only people who have gone through it can truly understand it. Another thing is I have very much changed my way on how I view grief. We're taught that grief moves in a straight line. We follow certain emotions. We work through each phase of grief, and then, okay, I guess we're supposed to be healed and move on. But that's not how it works at all. Sometimes you're fine for days, weeks, even months. Then suddenly you hear a song on the radio, a certain date pops up, you see a pregnancy announcement, a smell, a random memory, and you are just right there back in your grief again. And I think one of the hardest things about pregnancy loss specifically is that a lot of it is invisible grief. We may not have any tangible reminders of our baby. We may not even have ultrasound photos. All you may have is a positive pregnancy test. We don't have memories that other people experienced with our baby, or traditions surrounding our baby, or all of those family moments that we imagined in our heads. And sometimes people may not even acknowledge that our baby existed, but we know they existed, and we know our grief is real. No matter how early the loss happened, and no matter how much time has passed, the grief is still there. It never fully goes away. We just learn how to shape our lives around it and carry it with us. I mean, that's really all we can do because we pretty much live with it for the rest of our lives. And finally, I want to talk about what loss has taught me. Losing Jasmine was one of the most painful things that I have ever gone through. And I feel like, as painful as it is, I think it has also taught me some things. I feel like I have learned to be more empathetic towards people, more sensitive towards people and the things that I say towards them. I mean, I probably was guilty of saying some of the things that are considered insensitive before I knew better. And of course, now I feel horrified that I would ever say that to someone. But again, most people are not doing it from a place of malice. We're trying to be caring, but it has just taught me, that I don't want to be that person anymore, that I want to be more sensitive towards other people. And it also teaches us just how fragile life really is. I think many people in this community become the kind of people who maybe notice the pain in others more quickly, and we connect with them. We remember those important dates. We remember their baby's name. We check in with them. We sit with people in their grief instead of trying to dismiss it or fix it or ignore it. Because we know just how much it matters when your baby is remembered, or when somebody says your baby's name or remembers that important date. And I do think people who've experienced deep grief like this often become incredibly compassionate humans, which is something I have definitely experienced in both the infertility and the pregnancy loss communities. As people say, it is definitely the worst club that nobody wanted to be part of, but it has the best members. So if you're listening today and you've experienced any kind of pregnancy loss or infertility, I just want you to know you're not alone in the thoughts you have. You're not crazy. You're not insensitive. You're not being too sensitive. And most importantly, you're not grieving wrong. These things change us as people. They can change everything about us. And sometimes we don't even know the ways in which we've changed until months or even years later. And sometimes the things that you feel right now are things that only someone who's been through it can really understand. I'm curious to learn what ways loss has changed you or what things it has taught you as well. You can always reach out to me at Sarah with an H at journeyforjasmine.com or message me on any of my social media accounts at journeyforjasmine. And if this episode resonated with you, please consider sharing it with a friend or leaving a quick review on Apple or Spotify. Thank you so much for tuning in, and remember, we are all in this together.